Alrighty. So, doing something different today. Uh, that I've always wanted to do. Now, I spend my life um, all day looking at human tissues under the microscope, but I never really gotten a chance to look at animals. So, decided to get some specimens and have a look and just kind of see, compare to a human what I see. Now, this first one I'm going to show y'all is a salamander. And unfortunately, this camera microscope I'm using is just a little too powerful, so it's kind of hard to zoom out at low power. So that's one thing I might have to try to figure out how to fix. But I want to start over here, and this is a histopathology section of tissue. And the first thing I'm noticing is that this salamander doesn't have a squamous lining. Like the skin is lined by something very different. It's very fascinating. It's got this sort of like all these tiny little glands that are underneath the surface. You can see them here, right there, and I think that must give it this sort of mucus sort of layer on the surface. Kind of going this way, you can see there's this tissue here. These sort of cells with this sort of clear look. That's cartilage, and it looks to me like most of the bones in this thing are made of cartilage, and I don't see actual bone. I was hoping, I may be out of my mind here. This is towards the tip of the head. I was hoping to find brain tissue or something, but I wouldn't say that. I don't think that that's what that is. But interesting, a lot of this tissue is sort of pink stuff. It's sort of connective tissue. It's not really muscle. These little things right here, I think this is probably skeletal muscle. These things are little glands. Not sure what that is. I mean, this is the thing. I don't know anything about the anatomy of a salamander or animals in general. Now, I think this is very interesting here. This is definitely has to be the heart. Sort of oval shaped thing, and you can see, looking at it, these little fibers, these are heart muscle fibers. You should be able to see a sort of pattern in some of this stuff called cross banding. Very interesting. Now, these little things here, these must be red blood cells, and compared to an adult human, these have have a nucleus in them, and adult red blood cells in humans do not have have nuclei. So this must mean red blood cells circulate and divide in the blood rather than in bone marrow. But, like I said, I'm not sure. I don't see any other cells. Now, over here, this is interesting. There's this structure, it's kind of round, oval thing. I don't know what it is, but it contains a lot of red blood cells. And the funny thing about these red blood cells is a lot of them, you can see, have this sort of sickle shape, this elongated shape, which is what you see in humans. You would call that sickle cell anemia, which you can see. I'm not sure what the structure is, why it contains all this blood. This is very fascinating, honestly. This is like this sort of outer lining to this thing. I'm not sure what this thing is. Let's go on a lower power now. Kind of heading this way. This is one of the arms. It kind of came off the side. And I think if you go down real high power on this stuff, you can see this is skeletal muscle. Muscle cells have these sort of nucleus that get pushed to the side of the cell. Not seeing any good cross banding. It's not a good angle. It's more cut and blunt. Another thing that's funny, you see this sort of this pigment right here, and I guess you would call it the skin of the salamander. This sort of dark stuff. It was a dark appearing salamander. So I guess that's the pigment. Pretty cool. Yeah, this is the skin. It doesn't really look like human skin. Made of like a single layer, or 2 layers of cells actually. You can see there's like a line of nuclei going this way, and then another one at the bottom called the basal layer. But I'm not sure what we're looking at otherwise. This right here, let's see what this is. What that might be is actually bone kind of shattered by the knife that cut this tissue. There might actually be some bone in this thing, but there's not much. Let's go on the other side. See if we can look at the other arm. See, this looks like a joint. You can see here, this is like probably, I guess, the I guess you would call it the humerus. I mean, I don't know what they call the bones in these animals, but this is like a sort of ball and socket joint right there. All this cartilage, this sort of gray, blue material, that's cartilage. That's what it looks like in humans, very similar. So kind of going down, going from the head this way. This was the heart here. I mean, that doesn't, I don't know. I mean, obviously amphibians breathe air, so they must have lungs, but this thing that contains all these red blood cells doesn't look like a lung to me. Now this thing, this structure here, I mean, I don't know what this thing is. These cells, let's see. You got red blood cells kind of coursing through here. These other cells, all this stuff, I'm not sure what this is. Here's some red blood cells here. This structure, I'm not sure what this is. It doesn't look like it has a human counterpart now. This is where it gets pretty interesting. Over here, you see these cells sort of lining this empty space. They have this sort of, and see these mucus cells here. These are called goblet cells that contain these things. This mucin vacuole. This is almost certainly the gut. You can see this material inside this area, inside this sort of contained within this structure. This is ingested material. This is whatever this thing ate. And I'm wondering, we're not going to be able to really figure out what it ate for sure, but you can see almost certainly there's these small organisms here, I believe, are fungal organisms of some kind, growing in the gut. If we saw this in a human, we would probably just call it Candida, but I mean, I'm sure it's not the same species. But this material here reminds me of the chitin I was seeing in some of these other specimens. I had the exoskeleton of insects, so I wonder if this guy was eating insects or something like that. You know, most of this stuff just kind of looks, you can see it's kind of falling apart, being digested. Here's the lining of the stomach or gut or whatever you want to call it. And These sort of things look like glands, these sort of empty spaces lined by these types of cells. I don't know if that's a gland of something that it ate. I don't know. I have no idea. This is fascinating to me. I gotta say, I've been waiting a long time to have a look at what is inside of little animals. It actually started with me wanting to look at a jellyfish because I figured a jellyfish wouldn't have many cells at all in it. And I still don't know the answer to that. Now, this thing here, this structure, has these sort of, you call it cells with granules, these sort of bright red balls. I don't know what they are. Pretty interesting. But that thing looks like some kind of organ, and now over here, it looks like the gut, back into the gut again in this sort of longitudinal cut of his gut. Let's look and see what's on the outside here. See, here's more. So you can see the gut changes. Here, it's got these sort of what look like villi, what we would call those in like the small intestine of humans. So I wonder if this, oh, this can't go in lower power. I wonder if this is more like the stomach. This thing here, you can tell whatever he ate here. This is what vegetable matter, plant material looks like in humans when we see it in the stomach or in the intestine. So that's some kind of plant material. But I'm almost certain he's got some insects in here as well that he ate. But this gut looks different. So I'm not sure if we're kind of getting further down into the intestines. Something over here. All this stuff is all this junk that he ate. I don't know what it is. Oh, too bad we can't go on. I can't make it smaller. So this is the outer, the skin again. Once again, this is, I think, towards the leg now. It looks like we got another joint here, ball and socket joint. Here's all this muscle tissue. I think right here we see a longitudinal. We can maybe see the cross banding of skeletal muscle that you can see. Let's kind of focus here. Let's go on the highest power. You can see this pattern. It's kind of subtle. It's sort of like little lines kind of going in this direction. Let me get my mouse. You can kind of see this pattern right there. Cross banding on the skeletal muscle. It's pretty cool. Let me see if we can get it. Wow. Let's go on low power again. Kind of go down this leg. Looks like we didn't quite cut into the cartilage on that one. So then, this is the other side, this other ball and socket joint in this leg. And this is, I guess, the knee. Interesting. I wonder if this is a patella. Do they have a sesamoid bone there, which is a free-floating bone like the patella in humans? I'm not sure. We'd have to cut again to see. And then it kind of stops there. So back to the body. There's a structure here. I'm not sure what it is. But it's lined by these sort of mucus cells. Again, it's got this cell lining. It looks like a sort of gastrointestinal tract lining, but usually in the colon of humans, all the cells become mucus or goblet cells. So I wonder if this may be the colon of a salamander. Of course, I don't know. I don't even know that this is a salamander, to be frank. Hopefully somebody will see this and let me know what I'm missing. Now here we're heading into the tail. This is the tail. God, interesting. You've got this structure here. I mean, there's no way this isn't gut. I don't know what this is, but you can see you've got some cartilage here, which which isn't surprising. And there's a lot of muscle in this tail. Going this way. And stop there. I mean, it's hard to get every single structure in one single cut. We actually did pretty well. This tissue here, this sort of white tissue, that's fat. Adipose tissue. We don't see much of it in this guy. There's some more of it there. This is pretty cool. Yeah, back into the gut. Let's go back this way. Yeah, I was hoping to see something like a brain. I guess this cartilage in the head is jaw material or something like that. Or I don't really see anything that looks like a skull. This right here, this is kind of cool. This structure here, that's kind of cut in cross section was a blood vessel. And you can tell because it's got these red blood cells floating in it. These cells that line the blood vessel are called endothelial cells. This is these are red blood cells. And they do not look like human red blood cells for sure. It wouldn't take long for somebody who knows better that this is not human tissue. Let's see. I sure would like to know what this thing is. But I don't know. But this, I'm almost certain, is a heart. And I don't see any big vessel coming off of it unless this is coming off the top. And could this be the aorta or what? I don't know. The aorta probably wouldn't be this big compared to the heart. I don't even know if they have an aorta, but I just don't know. Hopefully somebody can watch this and tell me what we're looking at. But I think this is pretty cool for a first animal. Go ahead and post this and see if anybody has any interest in this or has any thoughts about what some of this stuff could be. Alrighty.